Good morning, everybody. On March 11th, 2024, here we are on the Dev Talk Show. I'm Chris Gomez, and as you can see, let's see if I get this pointing right over there. There, maybe.
That way.
It's hard to. This is actually kind of hard to get right. Is my co-host Rich Ross? How are you doing?
Doing well, Chris. Happy Monday. Happy Monday.
Yeah.
Happy post setting the clocks back here in the U.S.
Yeah, that's true. Well, we set them forward this time.
Oh, that's right. Set them forward.
So that might seem unfamiliar to some people watching, and it might seem all too familiar to some people watching, as especially if you have school-age kids. You said to yourself, "Oh, look, we're actually going to school in daylight again." Oh, wait, hold on.
Yeah,
We set the clock forward, so that's the end of that. But it's the Dev Talk Show, and we have been for the last several shows working with a Blazor-based application that also uses, and let me make sure I get all this terminology right. That's why we have Rich here, just because I think these are terms that are getting thrown out a lot, and we're using the Azure OpenAI service, but we're using pieces of that. Well, I don't want to say pieces of that. We're using models that you can access with the Azure OpenAI service. I don't know necessarily that you have to, though, right?
There are other services that you could use to talk to large language models.
Okay. I wasn't sure if the models we're using are only accessible there. I just don't know.
Yeah, actually, that's so really quick about that. That OpenAI service is it is obviously an Azure-based service that brings many different large language models into an environment that essentially can be segmented off, so it's got all of your data in it, right? So you've got your other applications in there, but this gives you a secure mechanism for being able to access those services, because they're kind of in that same space where all of your other apps are. Okay. And your data is probably there as well, although your data could live anywhere. And it's a little bit, although you could access those large language models from other services who have endpoints to get to them. This is the whole purpose around the Azure component is that it's your data. It's you're interacting with the service, and we don't do anything with your data aside from just making it communicate back and forth. That's about it.
Okay. So there's one way to put it is there's a value add there.
Yes.
That if you just go straight to openai.com and come looking through APIs and so on, that you're not going to get here. And I'm trying to be very careful not to say the wrong feature or the wrong thing, because somebody watching might rely on what I'm saying. And I'm new to this too, like a lot of us are.
I think we are, yeah.
Yeah, you might be using ChatGPT. You might have even played with some of these APIs, which I can say I have, but understanding all the features and everything. And so far, what we've done is we've used what was called an instruct model, so that in your application that you're building, so this is Rich's application, you can select some descriptors, is what I've kind of been calling them. I think maybe you are too, is so you can say like, hey, I want you to use this color, and I want you to use this mood, and maybe we'll add some other things to it. And then it comes up with a prompt that is suitable. It comes up with text that you could have typed in yourself, but it sort of fences it in to use with DallE, which I've used. There's a few sites out there. One of them I think I think the Bing image generation says it's using this.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. And so I've done it. I've sent some prompts and gotten some responses, and in some cases said actually pick them up and use them. I'm going to admit that it's become a fantastic meme generator.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm trying to remember what it was specifically for me. I don't remember the joke I was looking for, but what I wanted was an image of a cat holding up train tracks and the train going overhead.
Okay.
And it had something to do with pulling something off the tracks. And it was something that was said in chat at work. And so I typed a prompt that was like, the cat is of monstrous proportions, but has human-like muscles. And it came up with 4 images, and one of them I really like. So here I am trying to like, make a joke about something somebody said, fly over there, put in a prompt, grab one of them. It's into the chat. Kind of
It's
funny.
pretty. It's amazingly scary how quickly it can go from idea to that was what I was thinking about. So
I was like, that's kind of it, I guess, if I had any artistic ability.
Yeah.
So in any case,
I think the other thing to add to that is the Azure OpenAI service actually brings in different types of large language models. It's not just the ones that we get from OpenAI that they deploy into the Azure space so that we can use them in that service. There is Llama is another large language model that is in there, and then they're starting to put in, and this is new for me, small language models, right? Some of those that are a little some of those that, and where I think the neural network on them is a little different, a little smaller. So it makes it easier to potentially train going forward. I think Mistral is the one that we just announced in the last couple of weeks. So the point of that is the Azure OpenAI service gives you the ability to pick and choose the model that you need. And we saw that when we were deploying ours last week, that you've got options basically for what it is you're trying to do, and you can plug and play very easily then and say, well, let's try this one out and see what it works. Like, no, that's not quite getting what we need. Let's try this one. And it's all inside of that one Azure OpenAI service interface, if you will.
That's really interesting. I hadn't heard that term until just now, small language models.
Yeah.
But I suppose I suppose what we're all still learning, like as a society of developers, really, is in all cases, do I need the magical seeming large language models that are conversational and make you feel like you're talking to someone instead of the predictive technology that's being used? So that's going to be really interesting to try out. And so for people wondering what to expect on the show today, we're going to get back to working on that particular this particular app, and we can see that the prompt generation is working. And now it's time, besides the prompt generation, now it's time to, I think I'm right, is let's see if we can get it wired up to actually producing images, or at least we'll get as far as we can get. And so if you're new to the show, there are times that where maybe the scales of preparedness are varied. There are certainly times that one of us might come in here with a completed project and we walk through it and it's all going to work, and there's no risk to the demo. It's just going to be great for you if you just want to go A, B, C, D. But other times, 50%, 20% kind of coding live. And really the idea is so that we see the whole variety of ways that developers work, or maybe we're just trying something out too. So it could be any of those.
Exactly. and we don't know which way it's going to go. So there's
sometimes we don't know. Sometimes we don't know. Sometimes the last 10 minutes are a wonderful revelation, and sometimes it's like, well, okay, we'll see if we can come back to this next time. So are we ready to take a look here?
Yeah, let's take a look. So I like talking about something new and different, or something we haven't talked about before. We'll kind of get started. This here is, if you want to go to my screen.
Okay.
Yep. So there is a set of controls that Microsoft has put together for building out your web applications, or not just web applications, but building your applications. And it's kind of this UX framework that Microsoft has built, and making it easy for you to build for one platform or for all of them essentially. So you can, if you have a React application, there are some controls in getting started here for building those out. If you're working with web components and you're just using JavaScript, or more specifically TypeScript, you can you can bring those controls into your application. Same for Windows, iOS, Android, Mac OS, cross-platform as well. So if you think about some of the things we have on the .NET side, we can build for all of those as well. This gives a way to kind of bring those in from the .NET into your application. If you're doing something in React, or you're doing something where you want to bring in TypeScript and JavaScript based controls. So I bring this up because part of the reason I like Blazor is I don't have to think about JavaScript, right? Everything is kind of C#. Yes, there's JavaScript that runs under the covers, and if I need to dive down into that JavaScript layer, I can certainly go ahead and do that. So when I look at all of this, it doesn't really help me anything from the Fluent side until this one. No, but you can see as you go into some of the links on the page there, you can go in and you can look around at some of the various controls that are there and where those may take you. This is the one I'm looking for. So this is actually a project that is out on GitHub, and it is Fluent UI dedicated, or not dedicated is probably the wrong word. It actually works as a .NET 8 Blazor application, so we can bring those controls in, have them work inside the components. And they actually did a jump of versions recently, where they went from the 3 version up to the 4.5 version, which only works in .NET 8. So really for the latest version of .NET and all of the great updates that happened inside of Blazor. And it was actually really easy to kind of get this going, get it started. Inside of, you just look at the code setup section here. There's basically a .NET package that we're bringing in. So it's and I don't think I have Zoom it on here. 1 second. And that's probably that's interesting. That might, let's see what it does. Yeah, I can do this. Okay, so inside of my dev box, it still works for my main machine, so that's interesting. So essentially that's the install. There are also some, that's for the templates. You could just that's using our templates. There is another link to get us just into actually, if you do Fluent ASP.NET Core components, there it is. That's the one we want. So that's the package you need to get it started. But you could, if you didn't have an existing project and you want to just start with the template, you could do that as well. And there's a whole collection of templates that you can. That's the NuGet package, but templates that you can use to start off your application with, essentially. From that, let's see what else. There's also icons and emojis, and we'll see some of those when we take a look at some of the changes I did over the weekend, trying to get the look and feel of the site up and running a little bit better. So, and
oh, neat, cool.
Last thing is Reboot, which is the CSS styling for, you don't have to use it, but it makes the styling a lot cleaner if you do. So those are the things that we can kind of bring into this. We can also at some point dive into themes and things of that nature, but it, much like many of the control sets or UI components you have, they try and help you out when it comes to basic stuff like the layout of the header and the body content, or doing the main layouts, using a stack panel, which is actually really cool when you think about some of the stuff. And if I know we did some Maui applications a while ago, and having that stack panel as a control to be able to put elements into or components into is really, really helpful for quickly getting your page up and running. So it was awesome to kind of see that in a web-based set of tooling that we have here inside of Blazor. And then you could do forms and you could do components as well. And then you even have a lab section down here for what you're, for things that are kind of still evolving. And then the rest of, so that's pretty much it. I mean, there's we can show in the, if you want, we could show in the actual application here. I think we went to, In our app Razor, we added this line here to give us our reboot style sheet
Okay.
and essentially make that available. We also went into our main layout and brought in essentially the ability to put our fluid components inside of here. And I think there was one other spot we modified. That's the old.
Okay. So reboot
Yeah.
sets a baseline.
Yep.
That you can build off of instead of what I think. I think this is something that if you really dive into CSS, which sometimes can be a dirty word for some developers, like they really don't like it. But the browser has defaults.
Yes.
And this is something that I deal with quite a bit when I'm teaching some of the courses involved with the We Connect the Dots hackathon, where you've got middle and high school students who are building their very first web page, that we start off in HTML and stuff is just chosen already. The browser has already chosen default font, default the way headings look, default the way buttons look, and while the browsers, the different browsers generally have that same welcome to 1993 look still, I don't know that that's in the spec. That's just a choice that,
right.
Yeah. That
I mean, it's probably more the lowest common denominator across, all the browsers, right? So you want to make sure that your site goes everywhere. So it's probably the lowest level of capabilities.
Yeah, quite frankly, I wouldn't be shocked if these were Netscape's defaults back in the day, and then the next browser that comes along says, well, we'd better do what Netscape does because that's what everyone's expecting. And then here, I don't know that that's true, but I think it very well might be. I
mean,
so it could be what Mosaic did for all I know. So yeah, what happens very commonly is many designers have in their back pocket a sort of a baseline CSS that goes in and says, look, here's the way the elements look if nobody does any styling, so that at least I have a common, like you called it, a common denominator. And I didn't realize that Fluent UI had what they called reboot, because I know when you include, I want to say that when you include Bootstrap or Tailwind or just any popular CSS creation library, maybe, I don't know if that's the right term, they all kind of do the same thing. So when I immediately got attracted to that, I said, oh, I didn't realize that Fluent UI had a baseline like that. And that's cool that's all you had to drop in there.
And one other thing inside the project or programs file. So down here, we had to add basically the add Fluent UI services.
Yeah.
So I put it near the end because it has to go after this add HTTP client, but I believe that gets added somewhere else up above, because I left it in here in case I needed to add it, but I really didn't. So it just worked. I didn't dive any deeper to figure out, well, where's that HTTP client coming from? Does it come from the Razor pages or the server-side Blazor? I'm not sure, but it's at least there because it worked just by adding that line on 32. But yeah, so what's great about that, let me see if I can bring this over. So essentially what we end up with is a page that looks like this, which, if you remember the one we had last week, it was more bootstrapish. That was really what we were using for the UI, but we've got some cool bordering and effects going on here with this control, which is essentially just a stack panel with each one of these being what's called a card. And then inside of the card, we've obviously got some text and then some buttons. The buttons are really cool now because I can click a button and I can click another button, and it basically switches. So all of that, we can show if it's of interest where all that comes from. But then I can go ahead and do the same here. So I get the ability to change selections and be able to see what's essentially highlighted. I also spent some time playing around with a bit of a menu here, in that ultimately there's going to be not just the questions and answer pages, but some information around, for someone who comes up to it and just starts clicking around on this experience, what else is here. So just the home will have some background information. We've got our questions. We'll have a design schema, so we can see all the different components that were used inside of here, and then we'll have some kind of about page, for who created and those kind of things. So still continuing to work on the overall design and the layout of the application, but I think this kind of took us up a notch for what we were doing and put us basically advance the look and feel, I think, over the course of a couple days.
Right. And so, it was talking in here about that add HTTP client is something you use if your application's running on Blazor server. So we'll see.
We're interactive server. I mean, it runs on server, yes, because interactive server runs on server, but
I wonder if maybe the wording isn't correct there and that they should say interactive server, but maybe not though. Maybe not.
Okay.
I don't know. We'll find out.
We will. Well, it is working because we do get all the controls, and if we were to change things around, we could make those appear and
you're right though that they might just mean, because the wording, the terminology has gotten a little I don't want to say that it's confusing, but because we have server-side rendering now and what used to be called Blazor server, static server, interactive server, but from previous .NETs, previous ASP.NET cores, Blazor server meant the SignalR round trip experience, which you can still have.
Mm-hmm.
So in any case, all right. So we have our new experience here, and we know that we were writing some code last time, which it wasn't being shown in the UI. We were barely at the part where you could pick some of those buttons, had a breakpoint, the prompt was being generated.
Yep. Yeah, what we want to do is get that next step, right? So you see we have all of this essentially up here that is above the fold, or above. All this above part is done with the Fluent UI. We kind of want to move this over to its own separate control. What this does is it displays the prompt that gets generated, and it also includes the submit button, which fires off the request that goes and gets the prompt based on the responses from above. So interesting. Why did that not? Oh, it's the data service. Hang on. And it probably needs a refresh, so let's we don't need to worry about that now. We'll just kind of stop debugging for a minute. There we go. If we go into, save this, into our home page, we know we want to take this and we want to move this to its own control. We probably want to move this to its own control too at some point. That's where the actual image gets displayed based off of the URL that comes back. Because what ultimately the DallE service gives us, once we give them the prompt, it's going to give us back a URL that we will then render on our page. So let's go to components. Let's do an add. Pop in a new Razor component. Awesome. We can get rid of that. Okay. Let's see. So we've got a control here. That's fine. What we want to do is bring in essentially right now those couple of controls. Let's kind of move those over. Interesting why it did all that. Just interesting, all those red squares. It's oh, because of that. Got it. Which is fine. We don't. Well, not sure if we need that yet or not. Let's see. Cool. Yeah, let's get rid of those. Oh, okay.
Well, there's just
Okay.
more work to
Let's just.
do in the, yeah.
Yeah.
Like you don't have
Let's.
a value bound yet.
Yep. That's a good point. And then there's no method here. We're gonna take care of that one. Let's. So from here.
Okay, so you already had a submit prompt. I gotcha. All right.
Yep. Yeah.
And we worked
Because
on this last time.
yeah, we were actually
Yeah.
calling into this because there was a version of this that took some pre-existing code and I just kind of wrapped it into here to get it going essentially.
Okay.
But what I want to do is make this. It was it was basically a single HTML page when I originally from the previous project, but this one here I want to make sure it is. So we need to get one of those. All right. Okay. So one of the things we know we need to do is we need to bring in our responses. And let me.
So we need, yeah, like you had in the one pager, you had some fields. I guess they were fields in this code behind. So that's kind of what you're recreating now.
Exactly. Exactly. So awesome. It blew that up for all of my things. So that's great. Okay. The one thing we want to make sure we bring in is this, because we're going to need that for the state, so that we can understand where the values that are essentially in the that get responded to out of the questions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we need from that a response state object. Whether I have to new that up or not, I don't think so. Oh, dictionary.
Yeah, responses wasn't a response state. It was a dictionary like mood, happy, color, red.
But we also had question state. Yes. Okay. I don't know that. Because we shouldn't have to need that, because all of that should be.
I mean, instead of, so the only place you're using responses, I believe, is line 18. I think that's the only place.
Yep.
I mean, we could scroll down just to make sure.
No, that's it.
So if you felt like, hey, I don't need to build the separate dictionary because I can get that a different way, then that would make sense. But I'm not familiar enough, just sitting here thinking at it on a Monday morning about what the question state response state already has built in. And this is, to be fair, that's your response state, for people who maybe haven't watched or the whole thing. Response state is your class.
Yeah.
It's part of a service of yours that's enabling what you're doing is you're enabling component shared state in a way.
Yeah.
I guess that's a way to put it, because one of the things that happens when you go to a component model, and this isn't a Blazor thing, this is, I mean, use any component based web framework, which pretty much that's the quote unquote modern way to build these things, is now you immediately run into the issue where you're really cruising along, creating these small focused components that are good at one thing, and then they need to share some value. Like there's something important to all of them. So how do you do that, right?
Yep. Oh, okay. So we could do.
So response state already has a dictionary called responses. Okay.
Yep. So that's what we could do. So we could bring that in that way.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And previously, I think when we were just hustling to try and make it work, I think, there was other stuff going on too. It wasn't just, now you're trying to break down into components what was previously one page.
Exactly.
which I
Exactly. And
think is the
some
way
of
a
it,
lot of people work, right?
yeah. Well, and that's what we wound up doing. It was Thursday or Friday where we were playing around with some of the app settings and trying to get those values into an object so that we could then use them elsewhere, and all the dependency injection that happened. You see, we still have this issue here around the Azure OpenAI settings, needing to be available on this page. And the way we got around that was we actually did a inject of
Yeah, you have an Azure
OpenAI
OpenAI
settings.
settings. Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Right. So that's something that you kind of think of as the whole application level, and that's being built. That's being built essentially at like program startup time, right? It's in your program
Exactly.
CS. Yeah.
So that's
Yep.
here. We have to change that a little bit, right? We don't necessarily want to say user secrets, right? We just want to be able to pull them in as configuration. However it is but for right now, fine, we can roll it in as user secrets. But then we end up creating a singleton, because once we set the settings, we're fine. They can persist. They're not going to change. They're kind of immutable. And then be able to essentially then say, well, go ahead and create me a new one of these and pass in this builder.configuration. And when it does that, it does the setting of the configuration values for the properties that are inside of that object. So that wires everything up at startup time, and then once it's there, it lives for the life as a singleton will live for the life of the application.
Yep.
Which is pretty cool. So that's that.
Have you tried running this code without on program CS? Have you tried running it without line 17? Like just commenting that out?
We can. I have not, though.
I was just curious because so the user secrets, that add user secrets, it's built into ASP.NET Core. But I believe if you were building a console app and you wanted to have all the cool stuff that configuration could do, that you have to build configuration kind of yourself. I think that's correct. Where in ASP.NET Core, if you dive in, and start reading code that's sort of set up for you, that they add that to the pipeline. I think that's true.
Yeah, and it's the order, right, of things they go through, whether it's in the app.settings or it's in the app.development.settings, right? There's a whole hierarchy of...
and secrets is one of the very last ones. It's not the last one, but it is one of the very last ones. So it tends to override most things. Like it'll override in app settings. So,
true.
Which is great because, I'm just curious if that'll still work for you. That's all. I don't.
Absolutely.
I know we normally don't like changing two things at once, but hey,
let's kind of work around this when we understand what we just did there. So it'll fail pretty quick if we don't get, because I think it tries to build out it tries to add the singleton and then it just completely bombs. So we could put a line in there to make sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool stuff. So what we have here is we're kind of good through here. So lines 8 through 25 are the ones that we had working last time we did this. So we got our response CSVs or response values all comma separated. We pass those over to OpenAI via something we did last week called semantic kernel as a way of abstracting out what large language model service we're talking to. Because it gives us the ability to not only talk to Azure OpenAI Service, but also a couple of other ones that are out there. And then we essentially invoke that, and then that sends the information over and gets the prompt back. It's this prompt that we kind of want to then put through the same process. So I kind of renamed our semantic kernel text completion service, and developing on the fly is always one of those things that, like, all right, should we do it this way? Should we do it this way? And I end up spending time thinking about a number of different ways of doing this. And in the end, I should just do something. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to do text to image service.cs. So essentially what we have here is we're going to follow that same, and I was trying to think of, should there be some inheritance going on or something where, because if we take this and just kind of slide this and lose this so we can get a little more real estate here. So this is our imaging service. That's our text completion service. We're going to have to set up very similar kind of things in that, hey, I know I'm going to need essentially a kernel. And again, we'll call it kernel. That's fine. And I know we're going to need probably not going to, well, that prompt is going to, yeah, we do need a private string of prompt because we're going to build that out as we send it over to string.empty. We send it over to our DallE implementation. So, and then we'll have a constructor. And inside of our constructor, what do we put inside of here? Sure, those Azure OpenAI settings. That's cool. Yep. Feel free to challenge or question or whatever.
No,
as we go through and
I'm
do
just
this.
watching. And so, yeah, you're building a kernel here. Now, does it make any sense at all to use the same kernel?
That's where I was. But the problem, here's where, good question, because that was, in my mind, and I hadn't given this a ton of thought yet, but as I was looking at it last week, so this is our text completion one up front, the one we previously built.
Yeah.
And then we get down to here, which is our text to image one. And the big difference is going to be this line here.
Okay.
Because in the root of, in our constructor, where we would need to set up this different one, which isn't add Azure AI text generation. It's text to image, I believe is which it is. And then it gives us all of the, we have to include all the values like we would before. So there might be, but then I started getting into, well, if I do that, then I've got to say, well, what type of semantic kernel am I trying to put in? And I've got switching and let's just,
I feel like
class.
It's a case where we go ahead and build it, and then it'll kind of speak to you if you've repeated everything for the sake of repeating.
Right.
Because sometimes trying to figure that out up front just leads you to create a complexity of polymorphism, like, all these classes, you derive a class, and then, because this has happened to me before, where I have to go back a little ways, but I can remember being at an org on a project where it was an app that was doing a lot of, and like while you're working here, I can kind of tell the story, I suppose.
Go ahead.
It was an app that was doing a lot of CRUD. So basically, just imagine page after page of this page commands some resource. Maybe it's consumers, maybe it's the network, maybe it's servers. It was this whole management system. And like most management systems, you're going to go manage the servers. You're going to go manage networks. You're going to go manage consumers. You're going to go manage users. And so time and again, the way a page worked is it woke up, went to a data store, grabbed stuff, you edited it, it updated it. So every page kind of like, clearly somebody who was on the project before I was said, well, all these pages are the same. So therefore, I'm going to have a generic data store, which here we go towards the generic repository. I'm going to have a generic data store, and I'm going to implement these methods. That's okay, fine. But then they went one step further, is they said to themselves, and this happens to many a programmer, creating and updating one of these resources is really the same act. Because if I just use if I just create a method, add or update, and you pass in, because updating was essentially the same action in this particular project.
Right.
One way to update, you could have also deleted the row and re-added the row, and that would have had the same effect. That worked for all these different resources. And I'm making these resources up: users, consumers, network, servers. In this particular project, that was a fine way of looking at it, is that it was just the same thing to just go ahead and blow the user away and recreate it, because all the information was coming along. And so what happened is they put that in the base class.
Okay.
So the base generic repository thought of adds and updates as the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is that was logic buried in the base class. So now here you're the user, you're creating a new derived class. You start working on the update method.
Yeah.
And then for whatever reason, this particular resource that you're working on, and this was one I was working on, doesn't work the same way as all the other ones.
Right.
It's not going to the same type of database. It's going to like some file. I can't blow the file away.
Yeah.
But that logic's baked into the generic data store that we're using in the whole app. So now I'm suddenly asking myself, do I need to create whole new a whole new implementation of this? Because I can't derive off this anymore.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I think when you jump the gun in your polymorphism, you get into funny situations like that. So I actually fully support a case of going, okay, I've copied the logic once. Okay, now I've copied it twice. Maybe I should stop and think about it.
Yeah.
You know?
How are they the same?
Right. Are they the same? Are they not the same? So anyways, so here we go. We've got an open AI text to image kernel. So this is a kernel, or you're building a kernel?
This is the specific type of kernel that we're building.
Okay.
So we're adding Azure OpenAI to the kernel. Now we're probably gonna come back and revisit this at some point. For now, we're just gonna say there's a kernel that does the text completion. There's another kernel that does the text to image.
Right.
One might, and this is, we can dive into this at some point, but in theory, they could be the same kernel with multiple steps in it.
Sure.
That's
kind of what I was wondering when
I
was thinking about that image last week on the semantic kernel SDK GitHub page, where they show how it's building your final answer from multiple trips through different I don't want to say different kernels, but different services.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of thinking in my head, is that the place you want to go? But then again, it's interesting. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. So anyways, the point is,
I'm not sure. Yeah,
we're not sure yet.
So I know, or at least I planned to think that until all these red squiggles showed up, that we really should be able to do the same thing. So let's take a look here. What is it showing me? Semantic kernel is for evaluation purposes.
Oh, interesting.
Subject to change. Okay, because it's still a preview feature, I think.
So they just want you to acknowledge that in the code. Okay, interesting.
And I do that by putting the exception around it, right?
Yeah, one of the potential fixes might do it. When it says show potential fixes.
Oh.
There might be a suppress. I feel like there's a suppress that often comes up anyways. Yeah, down at the bottom there it's hiding on the left side, underneath the little light bulb. It's hiding over there. So you could suppress.
Which is what, yep. And putting the warning box around it. Okay, we can do that. I think, maybe. Oh, here we go. It's fine. Let's apply it.
Okay, cool. All right. So that's an interesting way of deploying a preview feature, to say, okay, you as a developer,
you should know, because it wouldn't have run if you didn't do this.
We're going to make you acknowledge that this is preview. Okay.
So okay, we can move on to some of the other. SK prompt creation, user answer CSV. Cool.
This time it's just going to be, well, okay.
Yeah, no, you're right.
I don't even know if you need prompt creation. You're getting the prompt.
I still have to have an object that I then. Oh, that's true. We might not need this. So that is true, because it might just be, hey, let's call this one and be done with it. Okay. I can buy that, at least for now, until we need to somehow think about crafting the prompt further. Seems to want to
Like I
try
could see
that.
you just taking the prompt here in invoke prompt, right?
Yep.
Maybe.
Yeah. But then the implementation's a little different
It
because I
is.
now
Oh yeah,
have
yeah.
to
It's a little different.
um yeah. Um yeah, we got to go the other way because what we're actually passing in here is not the string. I mean, we could. There's a prompt template, but that's a different thing. Yeah, it's a specific type of prompt we're passing in.
Okay.
So I think we
Yeah,
need
no, I
to.
don't know.
Oh, that's fair. Put that back out. So let's do this. I don't really think that's the best name for it, so I'm going to change this. Let's see. So this is really the image prompt.
Okay.
That's that. That's that. Yeah. Now, what's going to be interesting here is what we wind up getting back.
Yeah, that's what I was interested in, is that I feel like you're getting something else, but maybe we don't know what that is yet.
I think you're right. I believe we get a URL back if it behaves
Okay.
the same way other services have talked to DallE. So
Okay.
let's build this and see how it builds. First unit test, we failed that one. Okay. Oh, that's fine. So let's go here. Yeah, which we didn't wire any of this back up. So let's move this
Yeah,
guy
I don't
back
know
up
if you're
top.
injecting that yet, right?
Yeah, good point. So we don't have to leave that for a minute. Copy all that out for right now. And then down here, let's, well, that's kind of what that one says. And then from here, we want to do for.
So in the home page, you were injecting the DALL-E service, right?
Yes.
Okay. But we're not doing that here because
we're not using, so the difference is that DallE service, and we can take a look at that. It was some code that I got from a project, must have been a year ago, where somebody had started to go through and communicate with.
Oh, I guess it wasn't a service. Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
So essentially, this has the information it needs to go talk to DALL-E and generate an image. And what should happen is the semantic kernel should abstract much of this and make it easy for us to make that call. So I don't have to worry about serializing JSON for what we're creating and those and worry about the image that we get back, essentially. So I might have to provide this option a little bit. So it might take us a little bit of looking at the image to text doc and see what, or text to image doc and make sure what's in there. So that's why we don't need all of this, because it's actually doing that communication in a different way. But this one is going to be prompt for image. Right now, we're just going to call it image result. And we're not going to worry about clearing up the questions for right now, too. Okay. So in the end, we should get some result back that ultimately be a pointer to our image. That's the plan. Okay. And then let's not forget, over on our home page.
Yeah. Actually use the new actually use the new component, which was image generation or something like that.
Exactly. So I'm going to do on my stack. There we go. That should be all we need there.
Okay.
Okay. Yay, we succeeded. All right. Here.
That's horrible.
Huh.
Not
Okay.
provided by AOA settings. There's no registered service of type. Interesting, but we did that before. Let's go take a look. So that was in the. Oh, wait a minute. Was it? And then we called it from here, injecting it, which we did from here. Oh. So it is trying to provide it in the. There's no registered service of type Azure OpenAI settings. I mean.
So back in Program CS.
Yeah.
So an Azure OpenAI settings is registered. So
Good point.
Let's just go double check both of those components again. Because in one component, I think it was working. And in your new component, okay, so you're injecting technically a service that it doesn't know how to inject because you didn't register. Yeah, you registered an interface.
Yeah.
So the fact that it's working in another place has to be that. Yeah.
Yeah, because you can see this here, what I did before. All right.
Yeah.
That's probably it. And it looks like.
Interesting that it is very easy to write valid code.
Yeah.
To inject that type, and then when it goes to resolve it, it says you're not resolving that type, but that's just a good thing to pay attention to. Now, let's see.
Input text area requires a value. Oh, okay.
Never bound it. Yeah, we didn't go back and rebind this value. Because earlier there was a bound value to the input text area.
Yeah.
And so I think that's. Yeah.
And we want that to be.
I don't remember what it was exactly.
It's not this. We want it to be this. So then what we need then is probably
Was it the prompt text?
yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's
Right.
that
I got you.
is that's what I want to put there.
Okay.
The reason being is I want to be able to say, well, this is what got generated for the prompt, and then here's the image that goes with it, right? So,
Okay. So now you don't want prompt for image to be declared on 26 because you're making it a member of this component. So you should be able to bind that now.
which it likes. Okay. Cool. All right, let's nice.
Well, we'll see. So now
that was awesome.
so now
just in case, let's do this. Because did we make this? We didn't. So I think if I don't do this, then clicking that submit button won't do anything.
maybe. I think you might be right.
Okay.
I think you might be right. I wasn't 100% sure, but I think you're right because, well, I'm pretty sure you are because if you did that server-side rendered, then which some people do, then I think you would have to drop into JavaScript to basically to bind up the submit button. But I'm not sure about that. I even feel like we did a show where we handled some of this stuff, but I think you're right that in order to get the on-click behavior, that's coming out of interactivity. Somebody actually, there's somebody out there who did a server-side rendered Blazor, and then for all the interactivity, they dropped into client-side JavaScript, which is an option. You can do that. So okay. Anyways, let's see. Let's see where we're at.
Let's do happy and green. Submit. We landed here, which is good. Interesting why it's there. All right. We know all that should work, right? We've got our CSVs, right? Happy green. We should get a prompt for an image. And our prompt is generate a vibrant and joyful image featuring lush green landscape filled with happy smiling animals and blooming flowers. That's awesome. That sounds really nice. Okay. Let's see when we get into here. So let's do this. I don't have to worry about the prompt. Fine. Interesting.
So this is still text completion, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
No. You're right. Why are you being text completion?
You haven't gotten out of here yet.
Oh. Okay.
At least I don't think so. I don't think you've gotten out of here yet. So okay. So we have the prompt now. Yeah, I don't remember. Let's go back to the submit and see. I don't remember what else is in there.
Yeah, hang on one sec. It's here. Oh.
Okay, yeah, I just called it again. All right. Yep.
Called the other one.
Yeah.
My mistake. All right. Let's hot load rehab me here. Code changes applied successfully. All right, let's do it again. Smiley cartoon characters. That'll be fun. Okay. That's fine. That's fine. Diving into this one. Get here, here, here. Yep. Ooh.
Okay. Required service not registered. That's interesting.
Right.
That
Why
it
does
wants
it
the
need?
text generation service. Maybe because this other service, I don't know how you produce images with the other service. I don't remember what service we're on right now.
So right now we're in the text to image.
Yeah, but so this is the semantic kernel complaining.
Yeah. Well, I think that might be what we need to kind of take a look at. So we need to see is this. What's that expecting if we're creating a kernel that does that?
Right. So so they have a DallE example. I don't know if you want me to just show you.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, so let's switch to this. So this is on GitHub, semantic kernel. It's in the Microsoft organization, and they have these kernel syntax examples. And so what they do is they created a builder. They added AI text to image, which we did, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is added AI text to image, and interestingly enough, they only supplied the API key. I don't know that matters too much. But then check this out. Get required service. We haven't done that bit yet.
No.
So they created the kernel, and then they used the kernel to get a service, a text to image service, and then called that text to image service with a description. We have the description.
Yeah.
And then they generate an image. Now, what this image is, not, yes, you're right. It looks like it's going to be a string, or maybe it's a URL. So it just looks like maybe it allowed us to follow the old pattern, even though that wasn't the right thing to do.
That's okay. Well, let's don't stop sharing.
No, I wasn't going to stop sharing. I was
Okay.
also going to just point you directly at it. If you just, I don't know if you have another monitor to bring that up on.
We could.
Because unfortunately, what we don't have the ability to do is to copy and paste across the internet over sharing in StreamYard. Now, look, maybe that's entirely possible. I don't know, but we
That's
don't have
right.
it today. So again, I have not used these services. I haven't looked at the documentation. I just had these kernel syntax examples open, and I said, this looks a lot like what we're doing,
This
but
might work.
they did it slightly differently. Yeah. And,
Yeah.
and again, this could be very important. Not being too familiar with semantic kernel, simply invoking the prompt may say like, nah, no, I need you to do it this way, or it's just not how this kernel works, or I don't even know if it's right. This service works.
Yeah. Shoot.
I want to call it a kernel, but let's see.
Okay. Oh, you weren't sharing. No. Good.
I haven't gone back to your side yet.
Okay. Yeah, I got that that link that you shared brought back up. So
if you're ready.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So there we go.
So
I think you need essentially you need what's on 28.
Mm-hmm.
And then we don't need 30 because you already have a prompt.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter where we don't have to do it in the constructor.
I mean, I guess you're right. Well, except that you may not have access to the kernel at that one, or you do, because kernel's part of the
kernel's part of the class.
Okay. I'm sure there's a using there. Or maybe not. I don't know.
There may not be.
It might be. It's hard to say.
Now,
could be this semantic kernel text to image. That could be it.
Yeah, but we have that.
Oh, okay. So what's it complaining
Oh,
about here? Oh, you
it's the
gotta.
same thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing you had to do before.
Ugh. I mean, I could probably do it for the whole class at some point. There we go. Come on. Beautiful.
Okay, so now you have that.
All right. Now we have our image. We have our prompt. And then instead of, so our evoke's going to be different in
Right.
that we're doing this.
Maybe that's the place that you want to create the iText image service. I'm not sure. It's hard to say.
Oh, right, because they referenced DallE at that point. Good catch.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, that's there. And then down here we get that's just the size of the image, and it can go up to 1024.
Yeah. It's going to want you to pull that up further too. So I wonder if you can Alt. Yeah, there you go.
Nice.
I was going to say
Making the
that's
same
Alt
way.
up arrow and Alt down arrow, by the way, for people, which isn't, I think that's a Visual Studio default, but then a lot of people do things like install ReSharper, and I think that changes it. That's something that's bit me a couple times.
Yeah.
So, all right. So now you're just going to get the image out. You've got it. And now you have the URL. So
Oh, because that's image. Okay.
that image is the URL. And if you hover over var real quick on image, I'm just curious if
It's a string.
it is a string. I had this funny idea, like, is it going to be a system? Is it going to be a URL, like a system.url or URI? And I was hoping that it wasn't. So now you have the result. Okay, great.
That can get sent back.
Yep.
And then if we got a minute or two, are you good, or you got to bounce at the top
Well,
of the
let's
hour?
see if we can. Let's see what we can get done here, because as of right now, we can just at least we know that we should be able to, at least by stepping through, get a URL. But now the trick is, like you said, is you're going to actually try to show it just using a plain old image tag, which is cool. And yep. Is that what it's called? I don't remember.
It is now.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
That's interesting, though, that it declared it as an
Yeah.
the completion did not use string. So okay. So now all right.
That should make everybody happy. All right.
Well, we're gonna find out.
For the win. Builds. Happy green.
Okay, so what we don't know is what did it bring back there, because you've got the broken link.
I should be able to inspect it, right? And see what the URL is. Oh. The image generations operation is not worked with the specified model. Okay.
So is it because the model is the GPT model and not that DallE model? Remember how there was two models? There was a You created a GPT inspect, I think, and then so it's a different deployment, maybe.
It's also a different wiring up. Image generation component razor, semantic kernel, text to image, deployment name.
I don't know if you just know what it is instead of trying to get the
don't.
settings all right.
Yeah, all the other settings would be fine because it's still the same Azure OpenAI
Right.
endpoints. It's still the same API key.
Well, is that just a portal trip away, maybe?
It kind of is.
Okay. Oh,
Give me 1 second here. I should be able to.
I was gonna say it.
You lost my screen?
Yeah, I lost everything.
What?
You're here. Well, you're
Yeah.
talking, but your camera's
Right.
gone.
Oh, my camera's out?
Yeah.
Hmm.
And we're not 100% sure what happened. But in any case, a couple shows ago, we were using the Azure OpenAI service to kind of test out how this would work by putting in a prompt manually. Basically, the prompt that's being used now, which says, based on these keywords, go generate an image prompt. And that was all working. But I think for some reason, you might have been heading out to the OpenAI service to get that deployment name or something like that. And then I don't know why.
Exactly.
I don't know why that all went away.
Yeah. All right. Well, what models are deployed? Let's look at the deployments here. Hang on. Home.
Yeah, I remember. I think I'm trying to remember how this worked. Is that you were deploying a DallE model, but then I think maybe we used one that was built in to end the test. I don't know.
We did. Yeah, I do remember that.
Now, what's interesting here is the add OpenAI text to image method that we're using. It also just takes an API key. So I don't know. Am I right about that?
That's what their example had.
Yeah. You're right. That's what their example had.
I think we're already at 9:01. This is going to take a little bit longer to wire up.
Okay.
Because I don't think, because what I was expecting was one of these would be the GPT that we would throw in there for DallE, unless it says, I mean, it says it's vision. Let's just confirm that. Boom. Oh, it's also saying the connection's not valid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what to do here because I haven't used OpenAI that much, but
that's okay. No, I know I know the problem. It's
now you froze. So I'm not sure what caused that freezing last time, but that was definitely something. Oh wait, it looks like you're back. Okay, so yeah, I don't know what causes the freezing, but you had froze there. You said that you're pretty sure you know what the issue is, and that we're pretty close. So
we're pretty close, and we'll just start there next time.
All right, yeah, it's time to get to stand up. So hopefully you get to your morning stand up, and here we are, a couple minutes behind here on the East Coast of the United States. But in any case, hey, so we are pretty close to having this working in Blazor. We know that We know for sure that the prompt is being generated, and the next step is just wiring up the AI text to image service correctly so that it has a deployment it can use to generate an image, and that's it. So that's pretty cool.
It. So close.
All right.
This is
all right.
Awesome. I appreciate it, Chris.
Yep. Okay, so I don't know if you're going to run the outro because I can't.
I will. You got to put it in the other screen though. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Okay, I'll do that. All right, everybody. So, hey, thanks for joining us. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments, especially on YouTube if you're watching in the future. All the shows are, you can watch every show at youtube.com/thedevtalkshow, and all the replays are there. We look forward, if you really like what you're seeing here, hit the like button and subscribe to know when we go live. Other than that, thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you all next time on the Dev Talk Show.